Ali has delivered various trainings in the past 7 to 8 years in GCC region with us, including banks, government, large conglomerates, and other organizations. ESG is one of the very most demanding topic nowadays, especially after the COP28 in Dubai, which happened last to last month. So, Ali, the floor is yours for the next 50 to 60 minutes. I will not take much of your time. And please mute everyone yourself. And if there is somebody in the list, so we can always point out and we can mute them. Thank you very much. Ali, over to you.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to session on ESG, one of the most important topics nowadays. ESG is a buzzword today. Everybody wants to know. So the first point is everybody wants to know that what is ESG and how ESG works and how we are connected with ESG and what we have to do in order to remain in the business. I will share my slide with you, and we will just see that what ESG is and what is the evolution of it. So, so the biggest challenge for the companies is why organization exist. The simple answer is to make money, to with a profit orientation. Organization exists to make money. For whom? For shareholders. Now there is a problem. The problem is this, that for with shareholders has a conflict of interest with everybody, with stakeholders. Why? Shareholders are the owners, stakeholders are the people on whom companies spend. For example, employees are stakeholders, customers are stakeholders, society is a stakeholder, vendors, supply chain, everybody is a stakeholder. Now the problem is that every money spent on anywhere comes from the pocket of the shareholder. So there is a conflict of interest between shareholder versus everybody. Why? Shareholder are the owner of the company, and everybody is everybody who's versus the shareholders. Now, the world is changing. We already know that one of the biggest problem we are facing is the environmental change. The environment is changing. Because of the environment change, the business priorities are changing. But we'll take an example. We know that with the change of environment, the business models will be challenged in the future. Previously, what happened, or in real life, I often used to say this, in my and your life, whether we buy goods and we take a paper bag or a plastic bag, it doesn't make a lot of difference to us. Why? Because the sensitivity levels are different. But maybe in different worlds, in different countries, the situation is different. Now there's a mindset shift on the part of the investors, the owners of the company. What is the mindset shift? Businesses will not sustain over a period of time. Why? Because the concept of sustainability has come. For example, tobacco is a non-sustainable business or a less sustainable business as compared to the others. Paper at one point of time was considered a challenging business with regard to sustainability. However, the method of paper production has changed over a period of time. Now, what is the mindset shift? The mindset shift is investor want the sustainability over a longer period of time. Why? Because the disruption in sustainability impacts business profit. It impacts the continuity of the business. Therefore, for the first time, we have seen that a new concept of ESG has come. I'll tell you in the simplest word what is ESG, so you will understand the rest of the presentation. ESG is about investment funds. ESG is about investor. ESG is about funds. ESG is about investment global funds, which the businesses need. You know how businesses are run. The sole way of running is money. The businesses expand through investments. Where the investments come from? It comes from the investor. And nowadays, the investor is interested in a sustainable business. Why? Because sustainable businesses are long-term business. Investors want to make sure that the businesses in which they are investing is sustainable or is profitable or will remain disruptive over a longer period of time. Therefore, the amount of funds in the market or in the world are coming into the form of ESG investment funds, right? So that's the starting point of the story of ESG. So ESG investment funds are placed globally, which will be invested in ESG compliant companies. So technically, if a company in the days to come wants to attract fund, not only from investor, but if from financial institutions, they will have to be compliant with ESG. They'll have to show that we are ESG compliant and we have a ESG policy and there are ESG ratings as well. So technically, in the days to come, the difference between a good company and a bad company, or a company which can attract funds, or a company which is sustainable, or a company which is socially and commercially viable, will be a ESG compliant company. So ESG compliance is going to be the new black of the market. Why we need to comply with ESG? Because ESG tag is the one which makes a company reliable. Previously, what happened? If we say that the company is environmentally compliant, we say the ISO compliance is done. So if a company says we are ISO compliant and the other says we are not an ISO compliant, so the ISO compliant was preferred. So what is the biggest tag right now
वो
is that a
पैनल आप खोल
company
सकते
is
हो, खाली उसके पास चाबी है,
an
जफाली वाले
ESG
के पास
compliant. Okay,
आपके पास
so
चाबी है।
the
एक काम करोगे, एक पैनल कहीं कोई भी एलिवेटर का
can
खोल करके
okay,
इंटरकॉम
there's
कोई
a
आदमी
little
से बोलो कि ऐसे
disruption. All right. Thank you. So this is the story of ESG, and this is from where the ESG stems. What is ESG? ESG is about evaluating a company from three different perspectives. The first one is environment, social, and governance. So we will see individually that what are these three different challenges and how they are going to be evaluated. So in terms of sustainability, I'll explain you the concept of sustainability, which is changing and evaluating, and in a process of evolution over a period of time. Previously, a sustainable company is a company whose products are being recycled, right? We say that this company's products are being recycled. This company is a sustainable company and it has a good rating in sustainability. But with the passage of time, a sustainable company's concept and perception has grown. What is the new concept of sustainability? The concept is it's not about your product alone. It's about how many non-renewable resources you are using, right? Uh, how much is the social cost for a company? I'll just explain you in simple words. For example, in order to produce 1 kilogram of steel, you need 104.9 liters of clean water, right? So basically, is steel a sustainable company? Yes, of course, steel is a sustainable company. But the question is how much amount of water is being consumed for the production, right? And it's a non-renewable resource because the water that is being used in the production cannot be recycled and it is wasted. Now, how the evaluation comes when we say that now we say that X steel company is has a better rating or can have a better ESG rating as compared to Y steel company, right? So how we can say this? There are many factors which determine the sustainability concept of the company. We are talking about purely about the environment part of the sustainability. So we say X company is good because it is located in an industrial zone where surplus water is available, whereas Y company is located very near to a society where people lives and they are consuming water, and Y company is sharing the water of that particular community. So technically, X company is a more sustainable company, have a chances to attract better ESG rating and can be a good company as compared to the Y one, right? So what is the concept of environment is changing. Environment is just not about getting the health and safety requirements, getting ISOs. It is about who you are and how you are doing business and what is your social cost and what is the cost of your business to your business, right? For example, if you are located at a place which is a non-sustainable area or which is a challenging area, then how much cost you are bearing, how much you are returning to the society. So this is the big challenge, and we will talk about this sustainability part further in the next slides. So the future of the business is ESG. the difference between two companies. Previously, what happened? We used to say, okay, we are a very good company. We make a lot of profits. We are tech worse. We have very good human resource. Very nice. Good for you. Why? Because this is good for company. Why good for company? Go back. I am making a profit as a company. Good for me, right? Not for the customer, not for the society, and not for the environment. Why? The more production I have, the more social cost, the more environmental cost I'm incurring. We are tech-based company. We are technologically very advanced companies. It has nothing to do with my consumer. It has nothing to do with the environment and society. We are making profits. We are doing business, things like this. So previously, what happened that good companies were those who were making good profits. They were good for the investors as well, right? They were tech worse companies. Technologically advanced methods are being used. Good for investors, not good for society, not good for other stakeholders. It has nothing to do with them. But now the perception is changing. The interesting part is you remember a word. ESG is a principle based approach. I will tell you in the easiest word what is a principle based approach. In principle based approach, we say that okay, we are a company, we are a steel company, we are a paper company, right? And what we are doing the business in such a way that this is our environmental policy, right? uh, there is a difference between a principle based approach and a rule based approach. In rule based approach, there is a ISO compliance. You comply with the ISO and you say we are ISO compliant, that's perfectly all right. In principle based approach, that's fine, you are doing ISO compliant. There is no need to tick for this that we are doing this. The challenge is you are ISO compliant, but what are your key environmental challenges? Now, environmental challenges differ from business to business, industry to industry. In one industry, two different businesses has different environmental challenges. The example which I gave you, one factory is located very near to place where people live and they are consuming their water. The other one is located at a place where surplus water is available. That's an industrial area. The government has provided water. So basically, ESG is a principle-based approach in such a way that companies will have to declare their own ESG policy. One of the biggest thing and one of the biggest part and the difficult thing what we do. It is something like this. You go to your office in the morning and your boss asks you that, sir or ma'am, what you are going to do today? And that's the most difficult question you can have. Means what? Means you have a JD. Every day you go, you do your business every day. But one fine day, your boss asks you that what you will do today. And it's very difficult to answer that question. Why? Because whatever you will say, by the end of the day, he will ask you, okay, can you please let me know what you have done? Can you please show me what you said in the morning that I'll do this thing, right? Same as with ESG. ESG is a principle based approach. A principle based approach means nobody is going to tell me what is my environmental challenges, how I'm going to deal with it, what is my social cost, and how I'm going to or how much I'm going to spend on it. I will make a ESG policy. I will do my ESG review. I'll make an ESG policy. I'll publish my ESG policy and I will tell everybody that, okay, this is our environmental challenges and these are the efforts we are putting in to reduce the environmental issues and challenges. And this is the amount of money we are going to spend. And this we will report in our financial statements. So one of the biggest challenge with ESG is that ESG is translated. You can see the last one is translated into financial terms. ESG has no corresponding revenue against the cost, right? ESG is a cost. So when we will report it, we will report the financial part of it, and we will say that my company is so and so company. We have these environmental challenges. We are complying with these international and local standards. We have these key areas on which we focus, and we spend this much money, or on this areas we are doing this effort to mitigate the risk and the cost which we are incurring and which is going to the society. And why will I do this? Why will I do this? I will do this because I have to be ESG compliant. And what is ESG compliance? ESG compliance is about telling yourself, is about a show and tell story that, this is we are, this is our policy, these are the challenges, and this is exactly what we are doing, and this is the cost we are incurring. Why we are doing this? We'll say, hello, ESG investors, here we are sitting. Why don't you come and talk to us and invest your money in our business? And why will they invest in our business? Because we are ESG compliant business. And what about those who are non-ESG compliant? Now, this question is severally asked that the companies, what if, why should I comply with ESG? Especially when it's only a principle based approach, means it's a voluntary approach. And why should we comply with this? The problem is, over a period of time, or in simple words, if I'm an ESG compliant company, my vendor and my supplier and my supply chain and everybody connected with me is supposed to be ESG compliant. Only that's how I can say we are ESG compliant company. So technically an ESG compliant company has a ESG supplier, ESG compliant supplier. He has an ESG supply compliant sale, supply chain. So the problem is this, that if I'll be compliant, I will only do business with compliant companies. So technically, if I am a non-compliant company, a vendor will not supply me, right? I will not get new business. Maybe an IT-based company can say, sorry, we cannot work with you. We are a global company and we only work with ESG compliant companies. So there is one challenge in it, right? I'm just giving you the umbrella of ESG. Maybe at one point of time, if you are not compliant locally, you are a local company. A lot of companies say, oil and gas companies says, you're a local company. We don't need. No, tomorrow your vessel will not go. Tomorrow your supply chain will stop. Why? Because the supply chain is a compliant company and they cannot do business with you. Why? Because in order for them to remain compliant, they need their suppliers and their customers to be compliant. They will stop supplying you the goods. This is the biggest challenge. Second, now the companies has started making efforts to go for the ESG compliant. Tomorrow, what will happen? I have not done it. I'm very happy. Why? Because it's about money. Honestly, ESG is about money. It's about spending money. You don't spend money, you have nothing to do with ESG. Just keep silent, keep sleeping. One fine day, you will come to know that, okay, you have to do it. You have to do it. Why? Your funds will start blocking from the banks, both the financial suppliers, the investors, the ESG funds, and the banks will start blocking you. Whatever they have fund you, banks has financed you, it's fine. They will keep sending you the document that you have to do this compliance, this compliance. You don't do it, they will continue with you. But for the new project, they'll say, sorry, we want to be make sure, or we want to make sure that your company is ESG compliant. Are you getting it? So, so summing up, ESG compliance is the order of the day. It's the new black in the investment market. So next time the investors and the financial institutions, when they will talk to somebody, they will ask a question: Do you have a tag of ESG? You will say, no, we don't need it. They'll say, thank you. We don't need it. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but you are fired. We don't want to do business with you because we do business with ESG compliance company. And this is the time when the companies will wake up and they'll say, okay, fine, we will have to comply with the ESG, and the learning curve will start. So nowadays, what companies are doing, they want to know. In today, companies want to know that what is the ESG perspective for us, what we need to do, what we need to learn, we need to understand to be ESG compliant, right? So I hope this perspective is clear to you, that why ESG is in the market, and why companies want to want their people, want their board, right? They strategically need to know that they need to comply with ESG. So all those who thinks that it's only about the health and safety, it's about improving sustainability, ESG has nothing to do with it. ESG is primarily about attracting funds from the market. It's about attracting global investment funds. It's about satisfying your lenders, your bank, because unfortunately, it's not the investors who has woke up in this, it is the financial institutions as well. They need you to comply with ESG in order to continue your funding and in order to fund your new project. So this is one of the biggest challenge companies are facing or going to face in the days to come. Those who has nothing to do with attracting funds through shareholders or through financial institution, their supply chain will block. their Vendors will block everything. And that's how they will get the serious problems in the days to come. This is the background of ESG. So ESG is about investors, investment funds, financial institution, attracting money, growing your investments. So biggest challenge in ESG is financially measurable, right? So if, for example, there are two steel companies, there are two paper manufacturing companies, there are two pharmaceutical companies. It is about the industry challenges. So they have a competition in ESG with each other. Why? Because industry challenges, environmental challenges, health and safety challenges, solid waste management challenges, carbon emission challenges, more or less or plus minus same to one industry, right? For steel, it's same. Paper, it's same. For pharma, it's same. More or less, the all these environmental challenges are same for a particular industry. Now the difference. Now I am better than another company is about two things. If this is the standard of carbon emission, what is my level of carbon emission, right? I'm better than the other, you know. A company cannot better just by thinking or just by saying yes, we are getting better. No, you are not getting better. Previously what happened honestly, businesses were befooling the market, in the name of good corporate citizenship, in the name of other things, in the name of projecting themselves. They were doing it in all three areas. It's not about environment alone. It's about the social factors. It's about the employee factor, the diversity and inclusion. They are just giving the policies, doing just projecting people and diverse growth, but actually they were not doing it. So now ESG is about disclosure, giving a disclosure. This is the challenge and this is what we are doing. And in financially measurable term, we have spent this much on this area. So that disclosure is required, right? So ESG is financially measurable. Previously, the concept of good corporate citizenship was not measurable. It's about my social media projection. It is about my team, which tells that we are so good that nobody can compete us. Now it's about what is the financial impact of it and how much money you have spent on ESG and how to improve the situation. So that's the difference between your previous, reiterations, what you were doing verbally, social media, and on different corporate in order to build corporate image. So it's not about corporate image. ESG is about a measurable corporate image in financial terms, which says that what is your spending, what are your challenges, and how you are doing it. Okay, ESG funds are invested in business that comply with basic ESG framework. Uh, Again, it's a principle based approach. It's voluntary. Every organization need company specific ESG. So people ask a question, can I have a paper on which I can get all the requirements and we can comply with this? The answer is ESG is different from the previous versions of compliances what we are doing. Why? ESG's first dimension is your industry specific compliance, because environmental risks are different from industry to industry. And then your company specific risk, that in which part of the world you are located, what is the resources you have around you, what is the social cost you are incurring, and what is the compliance level you are achieving, you alone as your company. So there is no basic framework or a framework on which you can just put 5 ticks on the boxes on checkbox and you can say we are compliant. No, go back, look at your company, see what are the environmental challenges based, industry based and specific factory based. Are you recognizing them, right? And then recognizing means, do you have an ESG policy? Now, a lot of companies, when you go to their website, you will see they don't have an ESG policy. What they have, they say we are ESG friendly, we are focusing on ESG, but they do not have a specific ESG policy. I'll tell you why. Once you have announced your ESG policy, now you have called everybody, hey, look at me, look at us, we have a ESG policy. Whatever ESG policy you have, you'll have to comply with it. So it means first, because ESG is not a game. It's about whether you are going to expand in the future or no, whether you are going to survive in the future in investment market or no. Again, whether you are going to have a good reputation in the market or no, because ESG is your reputation tag. So if you have spoiled your reputation tag and the investors and the financial institutions have lost their trust on you, that you just say you don't do what you say, then you are going to have serious challenges. So only those companies who really want to get themselves rated. So there are ESG rating companies across the globe who rate you, but yet they do not rate you based on the standards or any international standard or on the country standard on which there is an ESG standard. There's nothing like that. They evaluate you based on the global best practices of your industry, your ESG policy, and its compliance, right? So there are two things. They expect that when a company will make a ESG policy, it will be made based on the best global practices on industry. That what are the industry challenges and what are the best practices that is being adopted on national and international level in terms of, I'm just talking about environment right now. I'll come to the social part as well. So they say, okay, what are the environmental standards? What is the carbon emission requirement? What is the global standard and practice for solid waste management in a particular industry? And then they see whether your principles, your policy is in line with the best practices or no. If it is not, then you will not get a ESG rating. Why? Because you're not following the benchmarks, right? So companies get themselves evaluated and rated based on the ESG policy they announce. They do not announce a policy until they have done the basic framework and they have improved or reached to a point where they can exactly stand up and say, we have a policy. We have a policy means you have raised your hand and say, I have a question. So if you raise your hand and you have a question, then I'll ask you, okay, sir or madam, what is your question? Right? So then you will have to say something. So similarly, an ESG policy is made when company has something to declare and they say we have this policy and this is what we are gonna do in it. Right? So that's the specific ESG compliance challenge for the company. And again, ESG policy of two companies in one industry can radically differ from each other. And that I have severally explained you. Why? Because their dynamics are different. Maybe, maybe they are in same country. I'll give you an example. In US and in China, the environmental policies are different. They differ from each other. You already know that Trump withdrew from the Paris Climate Accord. Why? Because he said that our companies are spending a hell of money. Why? Because of the environmental compliance. And Chinese companies are not probably doing it in that particular sense what they are doing. So they say, why should we do it? Are you getting it? So what's the point here? The point here is the compliance level is different across the globe. So the question is in which region you actually your factory is or your production plant is. So you have to comply with two things. One is the global best practices. Why? Because global investment fund will only come when you will come to the global best practices. When you are following global best practices in your factory, in your country, regardless of the fact that there is no requirement from the government. You know, your government is lenient. They don't want it. If you don't do it, they don't care. But now there's a problem. For example, I'll just give you example of one industry, GSK, Pfizer, you name the pharmaceutical company, they have to declare the ESG policy. But the problem is this, that their ESG policy is not country specific. If it's a multinational company, they will have to follow a global enterprise wide ESG policy, which means regardless of the fact that wherever their factory is and wherever it is located, they have to make a compliance. Right? Why? Because they don't say that our US factory is compliant or our European production plant is compliant. They say we are compliant. We are compliant means wherever we are located in the world, we are ESG compliant. This is the second biggest reason why you hear the word ESG a lot. Why? Because multinational companies in wherever you are located, they have to get an enterprise wide compliance. So enterprise wide means compliance, they need to have a policy. Now if they are a US based company, they will have a very high benchmark for it, and for rest of the companies they will have to follow it. Now I tell you a simple problem. maybe if the ESG compliance is in US or in Europe, in your country, you as a pharmaceutical, you want to be ESG compliant, but your suppliers are not ESG compliant, right? And your most of your supplies are from local market, and your suppliers are not compliant. You cannot be ESG compliant if your suppliers are not compliant, your vendors are not compliant. What you are going to do? You are going to delist all of them. Why? Because your national culture, your national requirements does not necessitate the companies to follow an ESG policy. Getting it? So this is the ESG challenge which the companies are facing. What they're trying to do, since they are multinational companies, this is their challenge. They're asking their vendors to get ESG compliant, or at least start working on ESG. Why? So that they can remain ESG compliant. Otherwise, they will have no option except to delist you. So ESG is a two-sided sword. One side is the operational side, where vendors, suppliers, right, your business partners, your supply chain will have to be compliant. Otherwise, you will have to cut them off from the business in order to remain compliant and based on global enterprise ESG policy, enterprise-wide ESG policy. Alternatively, you cannot invest you cannot attract the international investors on it. That's the second biggest challenge. Okay, now we will go to the next part. So I told you to an extent that why you need to learn ESG. It's a new black, how it's different. It differs from one business to another, and the compliance requirement is different. Again, I'll tell it many times so you remember there is no standard compliance requirement either on national level or on international level. It differs industry to industry, it differs business to business, and the companies follow the best practices. Even though you will see many forms and many areas where you can see, okay, comply with this, but there is no rule-based approach. Rule-based approach means there is no law for it, where you can comply with the environmental part or the social part in it. So why corporate need to invest? They need to invest in ESG because they need to survive in the future. Why? Because ESG is the future of the business. If they will not, then they will be left alone. People will not do business with you. Banks will not finance you. Investors will not come to your door. So you will not improve in the days to come. In future, every business will have to comply voluntarily. ESG applies to every level of management structure. Again, is it a strategic issue? Yes, it is a strategic issue. Why? Because the tone of ESG will be set from the top. The board of directors will make a decision that, okay, fine, we want to go for ESG. Why? Because departmental managers cannot do it. It's a strategic issue for the company. Why? It needs money. It needs will to implement. It needs a real will to implement. So you don't have to just do a picture session and you can put it on your social media and you can say we are a diverse company. No, it will be measurable and it can be measurable in terms of your rating. Okay, how it creates business opportunities? Now it will create a reshuffle in the market. For example, uh, companies, multinational companies, ESG compliant companies has their supply chain, they have their suppliers. But what will happen? They will say, are you compliant? They say, no, this is thank you very much. And they will attract new businesses from the market to connect with them as their business partners or as their supplier or as their vendors, since they are ESG compliant, right? So ESG will do business with ESG. So there are going to be new opportunities in the market. So companies are, in order to attract that opportunities and grasp that opportunities, companies are trying to get ESG compliant. Then there is a financial impact on organization, with or without ESG. With ESG, now question is why ESG? Opportunity. I have an opportunity. I have a new business opportunity. I have a new investment opportunity. I have a new loan opportunity. I have new business partners opportunity. First. Second, I will get better. I will be more sustainable, right? Why? Because when I'll be compliant with ESG, I will tell everybody that, see, we are good in environment, we are good in social part, and we have a good governance structure. So who we are good people actually. ESG will make sure, because I'm standing up, I'm telling my policy, and I'm saying we have an ESG policy and we are trying to get better, and this is the policy. So on the one hand, we have opportunities, business opportunities, growth opportunities, investment opportunities, and on the other hand, we have a chance to actually improve our company, our business in the market, and in real terms, not just by saying that we are a good company and we are corporate, a good corporate citizens, or we have a good corporate governance structure. So it's about reality. Okay. I will skip one of the slide. First, I will tell you that what is the environment areas where the companies will be evaluated. So the first part where we can do it. So, okay, so there are two types of businesses. One is the sustainable and the other one is not sustainable. Is it the definition now? The answer is no. This is the ESG definition in the days to come. So who are sustainable business? Sustainability depends on the nature of business, what you're doing. Previously, we were saying some of the businesses are non-sustainable. For example, tobacco is a non-sustainable business. But now every business is a non-sustainable business, right? So interesting point. Every business can be a non-sustainable. Why? Because it's about the nature of business, what you do. For example, steel is a sustainable business. But what about the production process of it, right? Furniture making company, sustainable business. What about their business processes? Paper making. You know, a lot of paper making companies, they say that we do not use wood for paper making. We use the pulp of wood, right? The pulp of wood. Similarly, so what is their input actually? What is their raw material? What are the non-renewable resources they are consuming? That's the big challenge. So a company has a very good nature, but it is located at a place where they are using a non-renewable resource, which will not be available, which is a non-renewable because of the environment, because of the situation, because of the local facilities, because of lack of recycling ability of that particular resource, right? So, uh, so this can be a reason why the company it's a sustainable business, it's a good business, profitable business, its nature is good, but its input is non-renewable. Similarly, there's another company located in a region whose resources are renewable. So this company can be sustainable in similar industries, similar nature, but the other is non-sustainable, which technically means that where you are located is again a challenge for sustainability. Where you are located, you are doing a good carbon emission, but the problem is locally there is no requirement for it. Now you have to do ESG compliance, but your vendor says that why should we go for it? I mean, there is no benefit for it. So there will be a disintegration in the days to come. Then recycling of resources can make it non-sustainable, and what type of resources you are using. So what can be the areas which are evaluated in environmental side? The first challenge is the climate change. Again, there are some companies which are located where the climate change is very fast. For example, where glaciers are melting, there are many countries where every year there is flood. I'll give you a simple example. In Pakistan, every year we have a flood season. You know why? Because the glaciers are melting. The country does not have the facility to conserve water. Because of the climate change, every year flood comes and there is a huge business loss. So what do you think that a company located in that particular region, is it going to attract the global investors, the global ESG investors? The answer is no. Why? Because the environmental change factor is very fast and it is impacting the business regularly, right? And because of the environmental change or the climate change, the on the national level, the impact cannot be neutralized or is not trying to be neutralized. Because of that, that company, which is a sustainable company, good business, which is not using a non-renewable resources or wasting a non-renewable resources, it is becoming a non-sustainable business. Why? Because of the location, because of the climate change, because of the impact of the climate change in that particular location or in that particular area. Right? Is it a manageable factor for the companies? The answer is no. The good factor is they relocate. They say we have a comparative disadvantage as compared to the another company, which is a sustainable business, attract funds. We cannot because we have the location impact, because we are located at a place where the climate change impact is very high. This is one challenge. The other thing is the biodiversity. What is biodiversity? You challenge, you impact, you harm. So everything apart from human is a biodiversity. So you are harming the natural resources. You are harming the living things across the company. Your waste management is challenging. I'll just give you a simple example of British Petroleum. What happened? Oil spill was there. Did British Petroleum did it? No, it was an accident. And because of that accident, British Petroleum was almost going to finish because of the civil lawsuits they were facing in the courts. Why? Because they brought a huge damage to all the biodiversity in the ocean, and for miles and miles the impact was there. The people who were living in the areas connected to that part of the sea were badly damaged. Their business was damaged, right? So oil and gas is a big problem with regard to the biodiversity, and they have to be very careful, and they have to. Now again, what is the problem? The problem is that oil and gas companies do not have financial challenges. Why? Because they do not attract, number one, they do not attract investors. They do not attract uh, the shareholders mostly. Why? Because they are financially self-sufficient. It's a money-making business. So if you see the financial statements of these companies, there isn't a lot of loans in it. So that's why they are on a little safe zone. So for sustainability, what will be seen and how you will be evaluated is that how you are challenging the biodiversity. Again, it differs from company to company, nature of business to business, industry to industry, location to location. Previously, what happened that for environment, location was not a very important part in it. Again, previously, what was happening, the US and the other countries were investing and locating their companies to a places where the environmental factors and environmental challenges were not there on governmental level. Governments were relaxed. They were allowing, they were saying, okay, fine, if you are not complying, we are not looking at you, right? You keep doing it. But now this is not going to happen. It is a reverse advantage to them. It's a highly disadvantage for them, because those companies will get a very poor ESG rating. And because of that, they will have to do a huge effort. The multinational companies will have to do huge effort to relocate themselves from those places where the climate change, where the biodiversity, where environmental challenges are there. Then we have problem of waste management. Again, good locations, third world countries, whatever you do with your waste, nobody's asking. But now it's not going to work. Why? You will be rated that how you are managing your waste, how much water you are conserving, how much less water you are using in your production, right? How much wastage is there? Then how much water pollution you are creating. Why? Because if you are using water, what you are going to do with that? You are going to as a waste, you are going to throw it back into the water, right? So that's the management of the water management. So that polluted water actually pollutes the rest of the water. So again, that will be the basis of evaluation in terms of environment. Then how fast you are depleting the natural resources because of your business, how much impact is going to be there, and how much the natural resources are going to reduce. Then the green issues, you have seen that even the construction companies, they have to take a lot care of it. There are green buildings and there are green issues which are working. So these are all the areas where the environmental scanning will be done and the companies will be evaluated on environmental level. Then on the social part, we have to see the business stakeholders. So previously we think that social part is only for the employees, but no. Social challenges encompasses everyone connected or affected from the business activity. Who it can be possibly? It can be employees. It can be the key stakeholders. Employees are the biggest stakeholder. So now there will be an evaluation. For example, there are few challenges on which the companies will be evaluated. The top of them is the diversity and inclusion, right? It will be seen that how inclusive culture the company has. What is the company culture? Again, the women empowerment is going to be a fundamental part in the ESG rating. So silently, when you will see, uh, again, you can go to the internet and you can see the website of the company. It says we are trying to get ESG compliance. Perfectly all right. But on the other hand, they are working heavily on two and investing in two areas. One is the women empowerment, and the other one is the diversity, bringing the diverse group into the mainstream, because that is the key challenge to the social part in ESG. That how you treat your employees, and basically the inclusive culture is actually the root for the employee engagement. right? If the company does not have an inclusive culture, the employee engagement will be very low. And low employee engagement means you are not taking, because now employee is a ESG stakeholder for the company. Now they have to take care of the employee just in order to satisfy the investors. So employees are the key stakeholder in ESG. Then we have customers. Again, when a company is ESG compliant, a customer will feel better. One thing I need to mention here. Previously, what happens is that when the companies were doing the environmental part in it, what they were doing, they say we are environment friendly. On a water bottle, they put a green sign or a purple sign on it, and they say thank you very much. I'm going to give you this bottle not for 1 dirham, you'll get it for 2 dirhams. And you'll say why? You say because we are green business, and who's going to bear the cost of this green? The customer, the consumer. But now the situation is changing. Now the company is declaring the expense they are doing, right? So what is the biggest mind shift in ESG is consumer is not going to be the victim of ESG. Consumer is not going to bear the cost of it, but the company will incorporate this cost in its production cost, which means technically the company margins will be reduced. How we can say this is happening? Why? Because ESG is a business reporting, it's a financial reporting issue. And in financial reporting, they need to identify the challenge and they need to identify the reporting as well, that how it's going to be reported. And what are the costs are being incurred and the corresponding benefits against it if there is any now or in future. So the companies are not going to transfer the burden or the cost of this ESG compliance on their customers. If they do it, then they will get a poor rating on it. So customers are not going to be the victim of this ESG compliance for the company. Then vendors, I told you in detail, if you are not ESG compliant, you are no more a vendor. You cannot work with a company who are ESG compliant or who are trying to be ESG compliant. Then we have supply chain. Society is the biggest one. Why? Because nobody has ever asked that how much the social impact of it, of a business. Why? Wherever the business is doing business, there is a social cost of it. So now the social cost is going to be measurable because company in their ESG policy, they will say we will creating these social challenges and we are incurring this much cost to reduce or to mitigate the cost which the society is bearing of us for doing business. That's the social cost of business. So they will declare it and they will have to spend money to reduce the social cost. So technically ESG is going to benefit the society in this way. Investors are the biggest beneficiaries in it. Why? Because in the days to come, again, ESG is about sustaining the business over a long period of time. When we say sustainability, we are not talking about environment. We are not talking about health and safety on employee or at workplace. When we say sustainability, we say this business is going to sustain over a foreseeable future of time, right? It will get better and it will be there. So we are talking about home, about the shareholders, about the investors, that please look at this business. This is sustainable, invest in it. It will make money for you. And in order to be sustainable, it will comply with all the environmental challenges. And they say, okay, we are complying. And they say for employees, vendor, customer, society, we are engaging them and we are trying to do some genuine efforts in order to engage them, in order to reduce their cost and their worries. Similarly, if a business is impacting biodiversity, they will have to show that how much they are, what are the efforts they are taking. So in this social part, they will tell specifically that what is the industry specific and business specific challenge to the business in this area, and what are the efforts company and what is the amount of money company is investing in order to reduce this side or to neutralize the impact of doing business on this side. And finally, we will come to the governance part. Again, governance is about running company or the business using the best practice. The code of corporate governance or the governance it's called the Sarbanes-Oxley in United States. The public listed companies need to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley, otherwise they cannot survive. Similarly, in UK and in other countries, it's called the Code of Corporate Governance. So what is corporate governance? We know previously, starting from Enron, Barings Bank, a number of companies, right? The recent one was Satyam Computers. Many thousand million rupee fraud was there. So what's happening? Basically, it's the poor code of corporate governance. The code of corporate governance is not being followed. The code is there in black and white. I'll just give you a glimpse of code. What is code of corporate governance? The code of corporate governance says that business, again, who is the holiest person in a company? The directors of the company. Now, code of corporate governance says, okay, sir, you are non-executive director, means you are elected director by the shareholders. You are going to see which area, which strategic area. And he said, I will see the audit function. And they will ask that being a being a director of the company, what is your capability? What is your qualification? What is your experience of doing it? And previously, what happens? Nobody has ever questioned the competence of a director. But code of corporate governance specifically says you cannot be a director of a company if you do not have the desired skill, if you do not have the desired experience. You cannot make a strategic business decision and you cannot be a part of it. So what companies do, if a non-executive or elected director who is the owner of the company, who has shares of $1 billion, he can be the director of the company, but he need to have an executive director below him. Who is an executive director? An industry professional who will be a paid employee of the company as an executive director, and he will be responsible for taking care of that particular area. That can be the strategic challenge, for example, the strategic business decisions in a specific area, the hiring decision, because code of corporate governance says that there will be three committees. First is the audit committee, that the company's auditors, external auditors, will submit their finding to the audit committee. The head of the audit committee must be an elected, a non-executive director, and he will sign an undertaking that I have seen and reviewed the risk reported in the external audit report, and I confirm that the company is a going concern, means the risk levels are manageable, right? If tomorrow something happens, he will be personally held liable for it. So why corporate governance is important? Nobody has ever asked the directors that, okay, fine, what about you? What about your decision? How you can take a decision? What is your experience? Now they are doing it, and they are taking undertakings in it, right? They give a so the responsibility of any wrongdoing or any mismanagement will directly be imposed on that particular elected director who signed the document and said, I have reviewed it, don't worry about it. So if he does not have the capability, he will hire consultants, he will hire third party companies who will do the evaluation on behalf of that particular director. Only ideally he will sign it then. So which actually tells that the company is safe. Why? Because industry professionals or a relevant professional has evaluated that part, right? So that's why corporate governance is important, and it constitutes an integral part of the ESG of the enterprise, social and governance part. So the concept of good corporate citizenship alone, which the company says project is not enough, so the company will stand up and say, we follow the code of corporate governance of the country or the global in letter and in spirit. We follow the best practices in the code of corporate governance, which is available. The company directors are trained for code of corporate governance, and that's what we are. So based on that, the company will be considered the ESG compliance companies, right? So just skimming it, why governance is added to the ESG framework? You are environmentally good, you're good with the stakeholders, society, socially you good, but the people who are running the company are going to ruin the company. Why? Because the governance part is not good. Again, remember one thing, ESG is all about outside. It's about environment, means outside, society means outside, and governance means shareholders money, investors money. So investors want to be sure that whatever money he is investing, bank want to be sure that whatever money he is investing in the business, the bank is investing, the company is governed in such a way that it is not going to collapse, there are not going to be big frauds in the company, and the company is following the global best practices in the governance part. So that is why the governance is included in ESG part. Who is responsible for governance in ESG? The answer is the board of directors is responsible. They are the one who actually govern the company, and they are required to follow the code of corporate governance. What are the perils of bad governance? We have already discussed. A lot of companies, starting from Enron, Barings Bank, a huge list of companies which collapsed across the globe. BCCI Bank went down. Satyam Computers was a recent example. So what is this? That's because who do the fraud? The fraud was done on the top level, on the governance board level. The board decisions were so bad, rather they were fraudulent decisions, right? Because of that, the huge losses happened, and that is the peril of bad governance. Then the previously it was the code of corporate governance was incorporated in it for public listed companies in a stock exchange, but now it's moving towards the society. Why? I am a shareholder of XYZ company which is ESG compliant. The moment they say ESG compliant, I say is at least my money will not ruin. I know they will not just say, okay, thank you very much, I'm sorry we lost your money. No, this is not going to happen. Why? Because in ESG the governance part is there, and if a company is rated well, then it means they are doing the governance, the good governance. And good governance means prosperity, money, healthiness, future, and above all, safety and security. And financial measurement of governance is done, which is the integrated management. That's again a long story, that when the board make a decision, they report that what is the financial impact of this decision over next 5, 10, 15 years. And as the Securities and Exchange Commission in almost every country is the governance watchdog, which say that which looks very carefully that how a company is being managed. Right. I hope you have enjoyed this session. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. Yes, anyone. You want to ask, you can open your mic so we can do it fast. Yes, anyone. Again, thank you very much. Thank you for attending. Thank you for listening to me for an hour about a very difficult topic, ESG. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Ali, I think there is one question. Is there any regulator authorities to make sure ESG is being catered? I'm not sure if you have already answered.
Actually, there is no regulatory. I told you, it differ from country to country, industry to industry. They don't want to make it a regulatory issue. They don't want to do a tick box. Why? Because we do a tick and then we do what we were doing previously. They say, why don't you come up with your own policy, with your ESG policy, enterprise wide? Yes, anyone, I can see a hand.
Right. And meanwhile, I would like to announce, Ali, if you can show the QR code of the feedback form. So meanwhile, we are having questions. Please scan the QR code or follow the link in the chat window, and you can fill in the QR code, and meanwhile, we can have the questions as well.
So please let me know if you can see my screen. Can you?
No, I think you have stopped sharing.
Okay, okay. Let me share it again.
I just have a question.
Yes, please.
Which was the company that recently had the issue? Is it the computer company you mentioned?
Yeah. It was Satyam Computers, SATYAM, Satyam Computers. They had a huge issue. They had around, it's Satyam. It's Indian company, SATYAM, Satyam.
Satyam Computers?
Computers, yeah.
Ah.
They have 2,000 crore cash missing from the company, right? Ooh. Which is a huge amount, and PwC was their auditors. So ouch. You can see it's a big challenge. Now, I hope you can see my screen. Meanwhile, yes, please feel free to ask and open your mic and ask any question if you have. Yes, I can see a question. You can ask a question by opening your mic, please.
I think regulator, you have already answered. Is there any regulator authorities to make
no,
sure?
No, there are no regulators right now. Right now, it is in the process. The countries are working on it, but right now, there is no regulator across the globe who is managing ESG. However, there are ESG rating companies So how it is being measured that the companies are doing it well, or they are compliant with the local laws or with the global best practices, is through ESG auditors. But there is no regulatory requirement across the globe right now.
Is there a local UAE ESG rating company or establishment?
Yeah, there are many companies. All big four companies are rating companies. And there is a long list of companies which do the rating. You can easily find it on internet. But big four are the best ones. It means they are more in this business.
So do I Google ESG rating companies or ESG auditing companies?
They are same. They are same. You can find ESG audit companies, rating companies, but the biggest one right now are the big four companies, big four audit firms, which are doing the ratings.
I just have a question. If you have
Yes,
to
please.
register your company as an ESG company and you have to start from a scratch, you don't have anything, any material for this one. So is there any guidelines or any publications or anything is available so that how you apply with this ESG?
If you search on internet, there are many companies which provides the guideline, but I'll tell you exactly how companies do it. See, there is no rocket science in ESG. The companies, the areas which I told you in environment, I show you the slide. If you want, you can get the slide as well. Uh, so they follow that particular areas or benchmark. For example, I told you in environment side, I gave you the listing of that. If you like, I can show you again. So what are the areas where they can actually they can find out that what they need to do. Just one moment, I'll show you on the uh, on the environmental side, they need to work on these areas. You can see that. I hope you can see my screen.
No, no. Actually, the
You
names are
can?
appearing.
You can see my screen. I'll share it again. Just one moment, please.
It will take some minute.
Okay. Now, can you see that?
Yeah, now I can see that. Yeah.
Okay, so these are the environmental areas on which companies start working. So the HSE department of a company actually focuses on this area. It's not something new. They are already doing it. The only thing is they had to announce it as a policy that this is our ESG policy, right? Similarly, in the social side, they need to see all these stakeholders and they have to see what they're doing with the employees. For example, organizations are working on diversity and inclusion. On the customer side, vendor side, they need to see and evaluate that vendors are ESG compliant or no. Multinational companies and farmers, they have started sending notices to their vendors. So this is the starting point of it. That you need to follow the instructions in a way that suits your industry, your specific industry, right? Your supply chain is compliant or not. What is your good corporate citizenship stance on this? So you start gathering all the stuff what you have, and then you actually convert it into a policy and you say that this is the policy we are having, right? So there is right now there is no good policy or a bad policy. It's about your policy. And governance side, I already told you that the code of corporate governance is the basis of compliance for the companies, right?
Sorry, sir, can you go one slide back?
Yeah, sure, please. This one?
No, just one back.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, sir. That was very informative.
All right. Thank you very much. It's over to you, Mr. Vakas.
Yes, thank you very much for the participation in the program. What we will do is we have a plan to upload the recording. Ali, you can do the stop the screen sharing. We can upload the recording next week. and along with the presentation. So just bear with us till the next week, and you will get the recording of the session and the presentation. And again, I would request one more time, please see the link in the chat for the feedback forms, and please fill in the feedback forms. So if some of you are attending tomorrow's session, tomorrow we have 3 sessions on Power BI, on women health and well-being, and generative AI with ChatGPT. So if you are registered for tomorrow, then see you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you very
day.
much. Have a
Bye.
good day.
Thank you. Bye.